Alrighty, guys, welcome back to I Coach Nutrition Radio. I have a special guest here, somebody who's up in the trenches of New York right now. So I'm glad that she is healthy and happy and joining us on this podcast. But we've had her on once before, and having her on again this time, Miss Toni Marinucci. How are you? What's going on, girl?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me back.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm sure you've probably, since you're in lockdown there, I'm sure you've been doing a lot more podcasts with
Yes.
everybody. I saw you go on Jordan Side's podcast. That was super awesome. Congratulations.
Yes, that was a really great one. A really, really great one. You know, Jordan's he's a pioneer in the field. So for me to be able to be a guest on that was really awesome. And then just to know that we really did connect on so many levels and we have a very similar philosophy. So it was just really cool
Yeah.
to have that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan's a really cool guy. I actually had him on the podcast, but I mean, obviously all of us like follow him on social media and just see everything. He's just
great.
like, yeah, he's awesome. He's a
Because
cool
he
guy.
says all the things that we believe and are like literally like we believe in very similar things, but he just has the platform and he has an engaged following. And so it's really refreshing because we all know that like sometimes there's influencers that aren't putting out the best information. And I feel like he represents all of us who really are teach you about like behavior modification and habits and how different things fit for different people and you have to figure out what works best for you. And he's basically saying what we're saying. He just has a bigger audience.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I think I mean, exactly what you said. And then also he's so damn funny, right?
Oh
Like,
my
so
God,
it's
so
like,
funny. Yeah, and
it's
he
this,
gets people more than we do. Yeah, like he
yeah,
gets to them because he's hysterical and he has his own way about him. It's so great.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a great like learning lesson is like this interesting balance between like education and entertainment. Cause like nobody does it better than he does, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
anyways, well, we didn't come as much as we love Jordan. We didn't come here today to talk about Jordan Syatt on this podcast. We came to talk about a TED talk that you just did recently, and a book that you're writing here. And it's basically, as we were talking about before, I make a lot of these kind of correlations between nutrition coaching or like nutrition and finances, like as a skill set. And I always talk about like if I had to help somebody, if I was this finance coach or accountant or whatever, and I had to help somebody get out of $100,000 in debt, the psychology of that would be very similar to losing 100 pounds in terms of building those habits and putting those things in place. So you've made parallels now in with basically dieting and dating and romantic relationships. So I'm super excited to kind of just like dive into that whole general topic, because I'll tell you what, like my wife will probably laugh at me if she hears this podcast. I am so far out of the dating game. Like Alex and I met when we were like 18 and 19 years old, and here I am, like I'm 28 now. So it's been forever, but I'm interested to dive into this topic. Like this is I haven't heard this from anybody else before. So
Yeah. So I'll first explain where it came about. So I am a registered dietitian and now I have a healthy relationship with food and more positive body image. And I understand and I use food as fuel, but I wasn't always like that. I started out overweight, really insecure, using food and using exercise as punishment, restricting my intake, thinking that that was going to solve all of my problems, but realizing it was just making everything worse. And I say that to say that, it took a lot of lessons and it took a lot of schooling and personal development work and all that to really heal my relationship with food, find confidence in myself and my body. And even though that took a little bit of time, it took a lot shorter than the lesson where I dated basically all of the wrong men that you could probably picture. And so I always tell people I am a nutrition expert, but when it comes to dating, I suck. Like, I just always wanted the bad boys. I ended up in relationships with people that just were always cheating on me. It was just unhealthy relationships that I would end up in. And you would think over a certain period of time, I would have learned my lesson and stopped going for like that same guy or that same type, but I didn't. I never once paused and reflected and asked why, what's wrong with what was wrong with the situation, what was wrong with me, why didn't it work out, all of those things. And then I realized that basically most of my clients, before they started working with me, they would do the same thing. They would jump from diet to diet, hoping each one would be the one. And they'd get so wrapped up in the excitement of it, but then be really disappointed when that just diet didn't work for them. Maybe it was too hard, maybe it just didn't fit their lifestyle, whatever it was. And rather than really stopping, pausing to reflect, they would just go on the next diet, the next trend, the next thing. And we're never really introspective. And, that's why they kept, doing the same thing and expecting different results, but that's what we call insanity. And I was doing that in my dating life. So I realized the connection probably about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And that's where the TED Talk came about and the book became about. And I thought it was just going to be, it wasn't a book, it was just a TED Talk at first, the idea. And then the more I expanded on it, I realized there were so many layers and there was just so many connections, and that was just one. And so that's why I'm writing this book, so I can really expand on that and really show all the different correlations and how we treat dieting and dating the same.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, the first thought that comes to mind for me is like almost this idea of like with human beings of us like wanting to fit in, right? Like fit in with society in an instance, right? And so it's almost like I'm thinking to myself, like, was it the idea of being in a relationship, of like saying that you're dating somebody, like was it like that you were chasing? And then like once you got in it, like then you realize that maybe like you rushed into it or
Yeah, so it was different. It was different for like each case, but I'll just give you a background. So very early on, not only was I overweight, but I made the correlation that because I was overweight, I would never get a boyfriend. And I actually had, and I say this more in my book, and I'm still working through being okay with kind of calling out some of my family members, but literally like where my grandmother would sit across from me from the dinner table, make faces at me for overeating and telling me that if I kept eating this way, no boy was ever going to like me. So I've got those messages in my head very early on. So in my mind, if I was not skinny or thin, or I didn't lose the weight, I therefore could not be loved. And so what ended up happening was I spent the most of my high school life, even though I decided to go to school to become a registered dietitian, I was still overweight. And it wasn't until I got to college, and I started to kind of find my independence, get on my own thing. And I say this in the TED Talk, like the first diet that we learned about was vegetarianism. So immediately I was a vegetarian because I thought that's how I was going to lose the weight. And then about a week later, I got asked on my very first date, and that was the first time I got attention from a man. So that man became my boyfriend. And I say in the talk, like it took me, sounds great, but it took me 3 years to realize that neither being a vegetarian nor being in that relationship worked for me. And like, yeah, they had their points and they were great and they taught me some things, but they weren't supposed to be forever. And I wish I realized that earlier on, because I probably, after, he was a great guy, he just wasn't for me. And vegetarianism can work for some people, but I had a gluten sensitivity, a lot of GI issues. I was hungry all the time. I was always tired. I was always bloated because I had other situations going on, but I was so like excited that I started losing a little bit of weight, and I started getting attention from men, and, I didn't want to let go of that. Because for my whole life, I was told that no one was ever going to love me and that I was never going to lose weight, or until I lost the weight, I wouldn't find this person. So I just didn't know how to be without it, because I knew how to be without it. I was just afraid to be without it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I didn't want to bring that up first, but I think that's something that I see so common with individuals that have issues with, emotional eating, with having an unhealthy relationship with food or with their body, is like a lot of it did stem from some type of childhood trauma, right? And maybe it was a situation like that with the parents, or, I have a client, I've had a client before, and like literally, like, I mean, this lady is like into her like 60s, and like still to this day, like her mom still makes the comments to her, and it's just mind blowing to me, and so it's like I've seen it in situations where like maybe individuals where they went through something like getting like sexually assaulted or something like that, or maybe it was just a family member talking to them, but God, I mean, it's that childhood trauma right there. I mean, that's something that literally affects people for the rest of their life, and it's really hard for people to gain the awareness like you did and be able to actually make the change, because if you don't build that awareness, if you don't gain that awareness, like it's impossible to change, right? Or to even try to change.
Right. And it's interesting because before we started recording, I told you I've been trying to get on more podcasts to talk about this more, because every time I do, something comes out, and I'm going to cry because literally I just made another connection, which is I spent my summers at my grandparents in Florida, from the age of 11. So I lived in New York. My grandparents lived in Florida. So my summers, I would hang out with my grandparents, and I loved it. It was great. And usually a cousin came with me, and it was a really great bonding experience. And so a couple summers I was being put down about my weight. And then I like caught on to something of like, oh, so if they see that I'm exercising, or they don't see that I'm overeating, then it'll be almost like I'll be good, quote unquote. And honestly, I did. And it was unfortunate because I had my other cousin who was also overweight, who wasn't exercising and would overeat in front of her. And she got, comments and all that. I stopped getting them. I started getting praise because I was going for runs, and I wasn't overeating in front of her, although I would sneak, and I would get, at night we would get like the cookie, we would get all the things, right? So realizing now, now I shift to exercising and under eating as my outlet. And it got so bad to the point where it took me a long time. And I talk about this pretty recently. I would say it honestly, maybe a year and a half ago, I had gotten sick, which with now I know was like the Epstein virus and SIBO, which is like just not pretty. Like I said, a lot of GI issues. And so I was told I could not exercise. And honestly, then it was like the worst thing that you could ever tell me, because all I knew was exercise, because I had gotten to this place where I was trying to always keep up and trying to quote unquote always be good, that a day without exercise, just like I didn't know how to handle my anxiety. And like looking back now, I was like always looking for approval. And I think I also carried that into my relationships, because then I would, even when I ended that relationship with that one guy, I ended up in another one about a year and a half later, and I stayed with him a lot longer than I should have. And it became to a point of, and this was always the end of my relationships were always about, it was no longer about my happiness. It was about letting them down. I didn't want to be a disappointment to them, because they loved me so much, and I didn't want to hurt them by, not doing that. And so all of this, we take all of these pressures. So I had this pressure to exercise, this pressure to not disappoint, and I like kind of carried that with me into a lot of aspects. And then it came to eating, and it was like eating so well that I couldn't not, how dare I like not eat perfectly? And it happened. It can happen. If you are not self-aware, it can really, really happen, which is why we need to be introspective, which is what I talk about more in the book and in the talk, and just in general with my clients, is being observant of how food makes you feel rather than how it makes you look.
Wow. Man, it literally, all I can think about as you just said that was like my son, right? We were talking about a little bit before, who's like, he's just turned 1 here recently. And it's like, I think about it, like I have 3 little brothers and sisters as well. And, same situation. And like, I think about my mom, I think about clients. It's like, man, like we have to be so careful. Did you ever like make any of the like comments to your mom about like what was happening when you would go to your grandma's house? Like, did you ever talk to her about that at all, or?
No, because I wish I could say that it wasn't like that at my house, but my dad would do the same thing to me.
Got it.
So, and I feel like literally these people I still love them so much. And then I think that's the hardest part, where people get so tired, or it's hard for us to talk about. And it was hard for me to talk about. Like, it's literally the whole experience of the summer and being at summers with my grandmother is in chapter 1 of the book. And I love her, and she's no longer here. And so like, it like kills me to write about it. But at the same time, I told you I'm working with John Romanello as my writing coach. And he's like, there's a lot of people that are feeling the way that you're feeling, that have a very similar experience, and you can't hide them from that. And we're not, you're not saying that your grandmother's a bad person, or that your dad is like, my dad's my hero. I love him for more reasons. But it still doesn't hide the fact that, they did that. They kind of imprinted or affected me from a very, early age. And I think we all are just, because like you said earlier, we just want to belong. You can give 1,000, and I got plenty of compliments, and people treated me with love and respect in so many other ways. And I wish we could say that I focused on those, but I don't think that. I just think our human nature is like, we stay fixated on the negative comments. I think it's really difficult for us to kind of, dismiss them. But they make us we are too. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think you're exactly right. I think about my parents, and not like our kids are going to say the things.
I'm sure. No, literally, I'm like, yeah. My boyfriend has a daughter. My current boyfriend now, which is a very healthy, happy relationship. And he has a daughter, and I'm not her mom. I'm like the best friend type of person. She's only 4. Like, but even like when I catch her doing something, and it's not really my role to, basically to not reprimand her, but like, punish her, or I don't know, just like tell her like what she's saying or what she's doing is not right. Like, I have some kind of responsibility, and I'm always like, I don't know if I just said the right thing. I have zero clue if I've helped this child or I've like ruined her for life. Like, it's like a really scary position to be in. Like, you're right. Like, every little word matters. Every sentence makes you very sensitive, and it's hard. Being a parent is hard. Like, I'm not one, so I don't know, but I can only tell you, like, good job. You're doing the best you can.
Yeah. I think that's just it. Look, I'm a rookie parent, right? I have a 1-year-old, but I think that's just it, right? Like, we're going to do the best that we can. And like, that's, like, yes, there are some things that happen that are like 100% uncalled for, that I can't get my mind wrapped around the fact that they're trying as hard as they can. But like, there are definitely situations where like, the parents were doing the best they could. Like, it wasn't a situation where they were trying to inflict that, on them. But again, it's like, it's whether you mean to or not, like, this stuff happens. And I think like this podcast hopefully will bring more awareness to parents and to just everybody in general around like, hey, like, we have a responsibility to really make sure that, we're careful around what we say and what we do, because I hear the comment all the time of like, kids don't listen to what we say, they watch what we do, which I do agree with that. But at the same time, like, when we're directly saying something to them like negatively like that, like, they're gonna definitely remember those things, right?
Yeah, and they 100% hear what you say. Like, just the other day, my client was telling me that her niece was asking her if she was going bald, and it literally was because she found out that her daughter-in-law was talking about how she's going gray, and she's too young, she's only 31, and blah blah blah, and the little girl picked that up. Like, they're listening to you.
Yeah I definitely think they're doing both.
they're listening and they're watching for sure.
Yeah, I think about it. Even Josiah, up until this point, it's like, you think about your environment, right? It's like, his environment is my wife and I, basically, right? And so it's like, yeah, he's picking up all the things we do and say and all that. And so it's like, it almost makes me think back to like my troubles with high school and all that, and like wanting to fit in with like the, and getting into like the bad crowd and all that. It's like, your environment's going to dictate everything. So that's why environment's so important and trying to manage that. We just saw that in this transition here into quarantine, right?
Yeah, 100%. Very true.
Cool. So obviously, with you being able to have this experience like firsthand and go through this yourself, obviously, this makes you a lot more relatable when you work with clients, and you work with a lot of clients with, through emotional eating. And we did a whole podcast on that. So, but what are, like, since you did the TED Talk, and since you've started like writing the book, like, and since you've started doing more of these podcasts, what are some of these things that you've started figuring out? Like, you said this one here kind of brought you back to, to that day, and you remember something new. What are some of those other things that you remembered, or that, that have essentially, I guess, brought you back to that memory?
Yeah. Well, also too, so I expressed that I was like so I was in a relationship. So I've been, before my current boyfriend, I'm about to be 30. So this is my pattern. So we all have patterns. So pay attention to your patterns. Okay.
Yeah.
So 18 years old, I had a boyfriend for about 2.5 years. Then we broke up. Then I was single for about 1.5 years. And then I had another boyfriend for about 2 years. Then I was single for a year and a half. And then I had another boyfriend for about two years. And then I was single for a lot less because I learned my lessons really quickly. And I found someone that like it made sense. But it wasn't until I did that work that I stayed in this pattern. And for me personally, I was either in a committed, serious relationship, or I'm going to be really honest, I was just dating everyone and anything. And there was no emotional attachment. It was literally just, I was having fun and I was single Toni. And I was just being, single, whatever, which is totally fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And I think that every woman or man, anyone, we deserve to just feel like we're attractive and sexy. And it doesn't have to be anything serious. I think that's fine. The problem and the reason why it's an issue when you do it with dieting is because most people are either on a diet or they're off a diet. So they're either all in or they're all out. And it's like, just because you're not following, I'm not one to recommend like super rigid meal plans and things that cut out like whole food groups and all of that. But like, just because you're not doing that doesn't mean that now you have everything that has added sugar, everything that's fried, and you forget to eat your vegetables and you never drink water. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And so that's another connection that I see very often. It's like either being on or off. But like, to be honest, right before, so my boyfriend's name is Bruce, right before we dated for 6 months, which is different from in the past. In the past, I would date someone for about a week and we'd be boyfriend and girlfriend, or I just like wouldn't be even, that wasn't even like a topic on the table. So while I was dating him, I was also dating other people. And it was the first time in my life that and not just dating just for fun, like I was saying earlier, like I was going on dates. I was actually, and I was open about it, and he knew that, and he was doing the same thing, and the guys I was dating were doing the same thing. And we came to this place of, it was a maturity, honestly, and it was like an understanding and a respect, and it wasn't, they weren't trying to, like, I wasn't in my mind, like they're not competing with each other, anything like that. It was just really trying to figure out like, which one of these experiences feels like different, substantial, not familiar to the past, or what. And it was just a different type of experience. So that's kind of what I tell people when it comes to dieting is, I'm not against fad diets. Like, I'm not against juice cleanses and detoxes, although I just don't, we both know they're not long-term solutions and they're not really getting to the root cause. But if along the way you now learn that, you know what, I feel better when I eat more vegetables and I drink more water. And, when I limit the candy and the cookies and stuff like that, and I just have them occasionally, my energy is more upbeat and I feel better. So if you're going to take that lesson, that's great. But if you're going to do the extreme and then go the complete other way, then what are you doing? Yeah. You're just going to stay in that cycle.
Well, and I love that. I mean, really what you're saying there is it's kind of like with these, these diets, it's like there's these principles, right? Regardless of the diet, there's these principles that are in place that, get you the results or make you feel the way that you want to feel. And so it's kind of like with the dating piece, it's like, you essentially had to experience all of these different relationships and do all this dating, just like how a lot of people that come to us, what do they say? I've tried every diet under the sun, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like I don't want you to have to go through all that, but like, in a sense, it's like, you're going to learn, okay, what were the things that you liked, that you enjoyed, that worked for you? And what were the things that you didn't? Right. And hopefully that allows you to kind of build your own quote unquote diet, right? Rather than feeling like you have to fit in to this like cookie cutter box of a diet. Right. Exactly. So it's so funny. I mean, like, I don't do CrossFit anymore, but like, I think, everybody talks about CrossFit as this like cult, right? And I'm like, that's what all these diets are too, though, right? Like, it's the keto cult and the paleo cult. And like, it's guys, like, I know we want to fit in. It's ingrained in us as humans, but like, you can build your own, like, you don't have to follow a diet, So, and if there is a diet and it works well for you and you truly believe you can do it for the rest of your life, then amazing. But, if you're, well, we won't even get into keto right now.
Yeah, it's so funny. That always comes up. Like and I'm always like, it's always the analogy I make. But if it was really one diet I would say never do, it would be that one. Just because like there's no actual, to me, it's yeah, you'll lose weight, but it's literally unhealthy. Like there's no fiber. It's your energy is shot. And maybe if you're doing well on it, maybe that's because there might be another underlying condition we need to explore. Like I don't think it's good for the general healthy population.
Yeah, I mean, I truly like every diet, every strategy. Like, it's like I always ask the question. It's like, do you feel you can do this for the rest of your life? And if the answer is no, then like, what's the hell? Like, what the hell's the point in even doing it?
Right. So that's something that I say in the talk and is also in the book. And there's a whole chapter about it. It's, will this last past the honeymoon phase? And I always say it's hard because in the beginning, things are exciting, it's easy, but easy makes it easy to miss the signs. So like if you're, just because it works doesn't mean it's working. And it doesn't mean that it's something that, should last for a long time. So if you're going to do it just because you understand that, like I say, there's nothing wrong with a short-term fling. If you understand that it's just going to be something that you're going to try and you're going to experiment with, then awesome. But if you're expecting to do something like keto and stay in that for a long time, it's a really bad idea. It's like if I chose to like the summer flings that I had and I tried to make them into relationships, it would have caused a lot of heartbreak and a lot of headaches.
Man, there's another correlation for you, guys.
There's lots of correlations. The book is 11 chapters. It is hard to write.
Wow.
But there are a lot of correlations. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking about before we started recording, it's like I did that ebook like a year ago or whatever, and that was like 115 pages, and like that made me never ever want to write anything like that again. I mean, I'm sure I will, but like, God,
you will though, because you have a story, and it's different to write an education type of book. What was your ebook about exactly?
It was like the blueprint of everything you need to know to be successful with nutrition.
Yeah, so like that's not fun.
That was like, it was literally just like all things nutrition, which is like for us, like, I mean, for you, I'm sure the same way by now. It's like, God, there has been so many freaking people talk about these subjects here. It's like the internet does not need any more talk about this subject, But.
Right. No, but like so it's hard. It's definitely hard to write something educational. But I think, so like it goes in waves, because writing about something personal to you and like your story, I would say probably a little bit easier than education because it's yours and you're just talking. But it gets hard when you get to those moments where you start to recognize those connections. And what I didn't realize about writing this book was I was going to need, like, I'm in therapy already, thank God, but like I'm going to need to work through some stuff because it brings up stuff that you've kind of tried to forget about. And it can be quite triggering. So, but it also at the same time is very therapeutic. So yeah, you get, it's hard to write in that sense. But then it's easier compared to like writing, I would think something educational where you need to like cite everything and make sure that you're like, writing like what the guidelines say or whatever,
Yeah. No, I mean, doing something personal. I mean, I've shared my story like in a blog format before, but yeah, writing it into a whole book, that would I probably will do it someday for sure.
When you do it, you need a coach, like, and
sure.
I will always recommend some of my coaches, like John Romanello. He really is amazing, but more so because obviously like he helps me. So like just before I was writing like part of chapter 8. So like each week I have like a part of a chapter, like not the whole thing. And it's just, you work on it. You kind of write out the outline and then you kind of fill it in between. And you do like little chunks at a time, which, like, like you were saying earlier, it's like how you would get out of debt, how you would lose weight. It's like little baby steps.
It's so funny how that works, right? It's so similar regardless of what goal you're trying to accomplish. It's like we all want to have like the all or nothing mentality, but it's like even with us as coaches, like we have to have that reminder of like, no, like, break it down one step at a time. Like, So sure. I love it. Well, I'm excited to see your TED Talk when that comes out. I'm excited to read your book. Is there a timeline on that at all, or not really yet?
The TED Talk should come out pretty soon. Hopefully in a month or so, probably less than that, I'm hoping. The book, I don't know. I really, really wanted to, and I have to talk to John about this. So my 30th birthday is on June 9th. And I wanted to have like, especially with everything going on, like, I don't know if I'm going to be celebrating my birthday because like we're all in quarantine. So I wanted to have like a pre-sale type of thing available by then. But I think I'm being a little bit like ambitious. I don't know if that'll be possible. So hopefully this year.
Yeah. Right. You don't want to feel like you have to like rush it either, right? It's like
I know. Well, I wanted it to be out by June, like, but when I first started, but that's the thing. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And then I got the TED Talk, which was exciting. So this was all like an idea before I even got approved to give the talk. You know, like it was just like, but then that obviously took precedence. So I had to prepare for that. You know, and I need to like work my, you know, build my business still. And so
yeah,
hopefully soon. I don't want to give a specific date, but I want to say by the end of 2020.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. That's exciting. Well, yeah, you are a busy lady, my friend. You got a lot of things going on. So here, I'll leave you with this as the as the last question here for the podcast. Knowing that there are so many other women out there in this world that have gone through the same exact thing that you did, or are currently going through that, what is, if you could say one thing to them, what would you say?
I would say get comfortable with spending time with yourself. Like truly love spending time with yourself. And so if you're in this quarantine alone, like I am actually right now, my boyfriend's down south, it's actually it was a reminder to me that like, wow, I have done so much work, because a lot of times too, we look for relationships or we look to do a diet, we look outside of ourselves because we're uncomfortable with just being alone with ourselves. And so the sooner you can get comfortable with being with you and loving who you are and appreciating you for who you are, you will find you'll everything else will just come to you. Honestly, I promise you that. So just yeah, get comfortable with being alone, and that doesn't mean you're lonely. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love it. I always joke, my wife gets mad at me, but I always joke, I'm like, me time's the best time. She's like, what?
Best time.
And I'm like,
yeah.
well, I mean, I love spending time with you, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it's
you need to center yourself. No, but we don't do that enough. We
yeah.
definitely don't do that enough.
I mean, just being
men
like,
and women.
Yeah, I mean, being okay with like not doing anything at all, like being okay with like silence, being okay with like that's why like journaling is talked about so much these days, or
Yep.
meditation or whatever it may be. I think the struggle maybe is just like finding that tool that resonates with you and that you'll actually start to do consistently, right? And just like the relationships and the different diets, it's like you're probably gonna have to get your feet dirty and try out a whole bunch of different ones and see what actually, you know, kind of works for you. But give it some time. Don't just jump around too quick, because I think that's what a lot of people do. I'm sitting here, myself included. I think I have every freaking like journal, like personal development journal that you can get, like the 5-minute journal, the what are they all here? I don't even know. Like the Evo journal, like all these different journals, and I'm like, not even any of them are like complete. I think I was reading on your Instagram a few days ago or something. I think it was you that posted. You were like, I have like 5 books on my shelf that are all bookmarked that I'm like in the middle of.
Yeah, no, it's a real issue. Like we're working on it. Like, I have this really bad habit of starting something and not finishing it. And I wish I could say it was just with reading books, but I've recognized the pattern. So once again, we're not perfect. We just recognize the patterns, and if we want to work through them, we choose to. And so, yeah, so one of those things is, we got to finish what we got started.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I think that's personal development, right? I mean, it's building that self-awareness so that you can at least make the decisions whether or not you want to make those changes or not. So I love it. Toni, where can everybody find you at on all the social media worlds? I guess, I don't know if you're doing the whole TikTok thing yet, but that
I am. I got into it. I had to. I was being told I had to. I've always done social media since I started blogging. Tips with Toni started in college, believe it or not. So I've always been on all the platforms, whether I use them, and now I am on TikTok. But I probably would say that's probably not the best place to follow me. If you want to follow me, sure. But the best place to probably follow me is on Instagram at tips_with_Toni. That's Toni with an I. I also have the Tips with Toni podcast. And after this, Justin will be on mine. So you definitely want to check that one out. And then I have a free Facebook group on Facebook, Facebook page, YouTube channel, and my website. If you want to connect with me, learn more about working with me one-on-one or my course, you go to www.tipswithtoni.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Toni, thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm excited to jump on your podcast. Here we go.